Need the order call roll.
Trustee Healy.
Here.
Trustee Katsinas.
Here.
Trustee Malani.
Here.
Trustee Compass.
Here.
Trustee Reardon. Trustee Radiszewski.
Here.
Mayor Pika.
Here.
Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the May 6, 2024 Committee of the Whole minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of May 6, 2024.
Second. Any comments? Call roll.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass. Aye. Trustee Reardon. Aye. Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pika.
Aye.
Any non-student citizens and visitors for agenda-specific public comment?
Anybody here speak on any agenda items? Okay.
Optimized change order for HRM, EPL cashiering, and utilities billing.
Mr. Chairman. Trustee Malani.
Move to recommend to the village board to approve the change orders with Tyler Technologies for EPL licenses and implementation services for a total cost for implementation and maintenance for the initial 5-year term not to exceed $2,496,787, and recommend to the village board to approve the change order for Insight Public Sector for data climb project management services for the HRM, cashiering, and EPL project for $614,883, and Tyler Utilities billing for an additional $350,892 for a total contract amount not to exceed $2,623,855.
Second. Yeah, could you walk us through this one, please?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Board. This is past the technician, so I thought I'd just kind of give you a quick overview in the beginning and then get into the
Okay. I want to move the microphone closer.
Okay, so in 2017, we purchased the Tyler Emerald software, which is supposed to replace the current permitting software for development services. That now has since rebranded and they now call EPL for the enterprise permitting and licensing. That was started and never actually completed. It was put on hold. We did some refocusing on efficiency, and now we're going to start that up again. We'll get right to that in just a minute. In 2020, we went into the Remus financials, and then the HRM, which is human resource management, they now call it, and then the utility billing module. Since then, we've had a number of change orders for different other features within Tyler technology, to include the Tyler payments for our credit card enrichment processing. We have time clocks, the Tyler payments for the police ticketing software, and then project management hours, inventory licensing, and Tyler recruiting for HR. That currently is at a not to exceed $2.16 million next week. That's on the Tyler side. On the other side is the data client. That's the firm we contract to help us provide project management services for the deployment of the Tyler technology software. So along with the other ads that we do with Tyler, in turn we need to do the same for data client to help us implement that. That is currently not to exceed $1.658 million. The change order today, we would want to restart the EPL licensing module. As I said, it was not complete. We redirected, and now we're going back to it. Let's start that in the next couple of months. With that, DataClimb gave us a projection of what they expect to provide to us, and then what they would charge for that total. In total, between Tyler and DataClimb, we're asking a change order of $965,000. Next slide, please. The breakdown of the new costs really zero in on DataClimb is since we were so successful with the meter conversion project that's been complete. We're better staffed now as well, and our utility billing team is confident that they can start taking on a lot of these implementation responsibilities and tasks. So we're able to cut back a lot of these hours that data crimes proposing is necessary. So with that, the biggest cutback is between shaving some hours off is the utility project manager. We're gonna have that in-house, so where I have staff that will be able to directly communicate with the Tyler project manager and keep that project rolling. So we won't need that and cut it back. So in total, this is basically the breakdown of what we're asking for the change order. And this is our timeline, just a quick snapshot. The only incorrect thing would be the utility billing. We're gonna actually bring that in. So to start beginning of the third quarter of '24. Other than that, if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Thomas?
so I know, if you don't mind going back to the last slide, as far as the timeline, I know we included the cashiering in terms of motion, but is that gotten pushed off, or are we still close to a go live with that?
Good question. We actually determined that we're gonna end up pushing that off then we'll go live when we go live with EPL. We came into some issues where it wasn't efficient, it wasn't adding anything to the process. So when we go live with the EPL, we will still be using that API with the utility billing until that goes live.
Okay. And then EPL, Steve, I'm assuming will be ready in terms of any process changes or permit changes. I know there's quite a bit that's going on right now as far as being ready for development of this.
Yeah, in a couple meetings, you're gonna see that for the proposed changes that we're gonna do prior to going live, and we'll program those in with this, once we get the LMR there.
George, no, I mean, I wish I could say it was surprising, but it's not. The big ERP program that these types of things happen. I think one thing I would like to see though is, can we start capturing, now that financials has been live for a bit and HRM is going live, hopefully still soon? Is that still this year? The HRM component, is that still gonna be this year? Just wanna make sure that we're capturing some of our process efficiencies and value. I just wanna see, like, we're seeing the return, right? Because, you know, this has been a long slog and it's understandable because this is the way these things go, but do wanna make sure that we're capturing that as well.
For sure.
Our payroll will go, our first live check will be July 5th. That's happening.
Any other comments?
Yeah, that's fine. Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Trustee?
That's almost $1 million in change order. Is that spread out over these couple of years? Are we budgeting for that? And kind of to show, Trustee Thomas's point, are we able to explain what we've done so far, how it's saving us money, so why we're needing to spend almost another $1 million?
Yes, I was able to identify all but $210,000 that's been budgeted. And that is in the proposal for the budgeting amendment today.
Okay, and that's over the next 5 years, correct?
Yes.
Any other comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Thomas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon. Aye. Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Village Code Amendment, revised escrow regulations for plat-only reviews.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Rashevsky.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve the village code amendment for case number 2024-0377, also known as village code amendment, revised escrow regulations for plat-only reviews. And I move to recommend to the village board to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Title I, Chapter 18 of the Orland Park Village Code in regard establishing escrows for development review, professional fees, and costs.
Second. And this is essentially to, just correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is essentially to make sure that an escrow covers all our costs, which we've been doing before. So that basically
Cover our outside costs.
right. And we weren't doing that before, so we did end up pulling the bag.
Yes.
Which we shouldn't do. Okay, makes sense to me. Call roll.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Thomas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon. Aye. Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Village Code Amendment allows hens in residential districts via health, police, and developmental regulations.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve case number 2024-0403, also known as Substantive Amendment, allow hens in residential districts via health, police, and development regulations. And move to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Title 8, Chapter 4, and Title 6, Chapter 2 of the Orland Park Village Code relative to the keeping of chickens.
Second.
And, so the background on this is a few requests came in, and the thought process was we don't necessarily want these in places where we got 10,000 square foot lots, but if they have a 1 acre lot, it's pretty sizable, that seems like a reasonable place where you can have that without interfering with other people. So in those lots that are bigger than 1 acre, they're allowed to have it. Right now, I think it's 5 acres or something, is what we have. It's what?
There's a conflicting language in different parts, so
Right.
it says yes.
So at the end of the day, what this does is gets rid of the conflicting language and makes it an acre. That's all I have. Any comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
how many residential parcels do we have greater than 1 acre that this would actually affect?
I don't think I should know that there aren't that relative to the body of potential places that some of the potential lots, yes.
So when we have the enthusiastic resident that will read this and say, I can have hens in the middle of like a smaller subdivision, what are going to be the penalties?
Well, they have to get a permit.
Well, yeah, so they would still need to get a permit to, they have to house them a certain way, and you have to get a permit for that thing. That's
Let me rephrase my
We're
question.
caught.
In a lot smaller than 1 acre.
Yes.
Well,
Well,
they would
not
have to
issue
get
the
a
permit for the coop.
So let me rephrase the question a third time. What will be the penalties for somebody who does it in a smaller subdivision?
We'll have to remove the hens from the property.
You're gonna need to move the mic closer and turn them on.
Oh, it's not, sorry, oop, no.
So that like with any other municipal ordinance violation, what we first try to do is compliance. So if they do it without a permit, we will go ahead and do a field correction notice. And then if they don't correct, then there is a ND ticket. But the ones that are at 1 acre and above, maybe the ones that they still have to come in for a permit.
That's understood. Thank you.
Trustee Healy?
I don't know if, it's not necessarily with this ordinance review, but are you allowed to sell eggs from your, family house? No?
No. It's in here in the ordinance. It's not for commercial purposes. So no, you can't sell it, you can't operate it as a business. I don't think we want to get into the health code regulations of that, or ramifications of that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Haley.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
No.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Substantive amendment, recategorize gazebos and definitions and accessory structures.
Mr. Mayor. Trustee Reardon, I would recommend to the village board to approve the plan commission recommended action for case number 2024-0349, also known as substantive amendment, recategorize gazebos in definitions and accessory structures, and move to recommend to the village board to adopt the ordinance entitled an ordinance amending sections 2-102 and 6-302 subsection C and table 6-302.C.1 B of the Land Development Code of the Village of Orland Park as amended relative to gazebos.
Second.
So if you could just give the quick rundown on this, I think we're just clarifying language.
Yeah, and then there was some confusion. Zones were really specifically not allowed, we didn't understand why. So we went through and we thought about those, and it's basically a lot of gazebo should work as an accessory structure based on the zoning. And then we made a bunch of amendments.
You gotta speak into the mic.
Sorry. So yeah, there were a few districts where gazebos were not allowed, and we is. So, for instance, the banquet hall couldn't have a gazebo on the property based in this district. So we wanted to try to figure out why those 3 districts were left out, and we couldn't figure out reasons, so we're putting those back in and then correcting a bunch of just consistent for consistency to make sure that the ordinance reads right throughout the whole thing as we use every issue we bring up now.
Okay. Any comments? Call roll.
Trustee Reardon. Aye. Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. And I believe we should skip number 5, it's the same one we just did.
So number 5 is,
Number 5 is just to allow the actual structure.
Oh, okay.
As accessory
So
structure.
it's, even though it all says the same thing, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Substitute amendment, allow hens in residential districts via health, police, and development regulations.
Yeah, so this is just the part of the land development code, which is separate. So this part was heard by the planning commission, that's why there's a separate recommendation.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve the plan commission recommended action for case number 2024-0350, also known as substantive amendment. Allow hens in residential districts via health, police, and development regulations. And move to recommend to the village board to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending the land development code of the village of Orland Park as amended.
Second.
Any questions?
Call.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
No.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Substantive amendment, allow townhomes in the Old Orland Historic District.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve the plan commission recommended action for case number 2024/0351, also known as substantive amendment allowing townhouses in the Old Orland Historic District, and move to recommend adopting an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending section 6/209, table 6209B2, and section C209, map 1 of the land development code of the village of Orland Park as amended, relative to allowing townhouses in Old Orland Historic District.
Second.
And could you put the map up? Should we pull it up a little bit?
Actually, try, if you look at this one, it might have the, that's the
So,
existing.
yeah, there you go. So 100, the upper left-hand corner is 143rd and West Avenue, the Village Hall down on the lower right-hand corner, or off the lower right-hand corner to give you reference, so it's north up. That area right there, and in purple, the upper right-hand corner is actually already townhomes. So it will allow that area, which is where all the commercial is, and it's on that side of the tracks, to put townhomes in there, as long as they meet all the old historic look and, which, again, there are already basically at the top end of that, they're already there, and they were there before the old historic district was approved. So everything to the northwest of the tracks, or not everything, but that area northwest of the tracks is where you would be allowed to do that. The other areas in that northwest of the tracks, those are all commercial areas.
So we provide a transitional zone between the wholly commercial and houses, and all happens, is basically it.
Are there any questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, is there an Old Orland Historic District like group or organization? And do
I don't know if there's a group, there's a couple of neighbors.
do they know about this and they go already there, obviously, because they can see it?
Well, we had a planning commission,
That's what I was gonna
they
say.
had to be notified, so
They were notified of all this and,
I actually, for texting them, we don't have to do direct notification.
Yeah.
But it was put on YouTube, that with legal notice in the paper, yeah. And again, we're just doing these 3 block cases.
this was really just this one small area. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
so I guess I'm confused. Which color is the one that's currently available for town?
No, we don't allow townhomes right now.
Okay.
The one set of townhomes was built prior to the rule that didn't allow them. So currently we allow single family, commercial, and mixed use buildings, but we don't have townhomes.
There's-
mixed use.
So the one that's like the purple in the top left corner of the blue is the one down.
The one in the top right of
On
the.
143rd place on the north side of the street. There's one set of townhomes that was pre-existing. So
At northeast corner there, that's, you can kind of see there's like 4 of them.
Right. But then, so the blue shaded area is where we would like to have townhomes.
well, we would allow townhomes to be there mixed in with the other one. So it's like a transitional district.
But those are currently single family and commercial, or just commercial.
Those are currently single family.
Okay.
I think there's one commercial building in there, which is the Bill's.
Yeah, our barber shop is one of them.
And then everything in the red is commercial. And then the south end of that, that's the Twin Towers.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Cassius.
have we had anybody approach the village currently that wants to do townhouses in that area?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
I seem to recall that in the Orland Historic District, that there were some lots that had problems with, well, they had amounts through the village that have been old and old and old. I would just say, I just want to hope they'd be cleared up before any development would take place.
Say it again.
There's people who have, we have accounts receivable on, and some, I believe some liens against some of those empty lots. And I would hope that they would have, be resolved before any development would take place.
They would not get issued a permit if they had outstanding balances to the village.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been checking all the requests as they come in, or even if something becomes uncompliant in the middle of the process, we might hold up the occupancy inspection, for instance, until they cleared up whatever the past thing was. So based off of the policy that was recently set on the board to make sure that we do that.
Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Cassius.
just a quick question. If someone was to do a townhouse there on a single family lot, the setbacks have to be a lot different than they are in other areas?
They'd probably be in a collection of lots.
Well, the setback rules will still apply for the whole
Yeah.
district.
In this district, the buildings are closer to the street anyway, because it has a more, I don't want to call it urban, but old town kind of feel. So they still need to meet all the design requirements that are already in this district, which has its own set of design guidelines that are separate from the rest of the village design guidelines. So you'd have to follow all the rules, yeah. We did not make new rules specifically for this use, they would be the same rules as everything else.
Any other comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Cassius.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Thomas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Pika.
Aye.
Substantive amendment, increase parking lot aisle width for 90-degree parking spaces.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Thomas.
move to recommend to the village board to approve the plan commission recommended action for case number 2024-0352, also known as substantive amendment, increase parking lot aisle width for 90-degree parking spaces, and move to recommend to the village board to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending table 6-306CA of the Land Development Code of Village of Orland Park as amended relative to parking lot aisle dimensions.
Second. And this is basically to make the aisle width between them wider, which is much needed. Any of the new places that we've seen, it's way too tight. So a couple feet is a good change back to where it was.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Thomas.
Yes, I definitely welcome this change. I think we've probably spoken about it at least a few dozen times, I'm sure. And I know the old codes are wishing for a day of bicycles and compact cars. The reality of today is crossovers, SUVs, and trucks. Many automotive manufacturers not even making sedans anymore. I know that this isn't before us today, but I know the commission mentioned also widening spaces at half a foot. I would be fully behind that as well, just as a minimum timeline. But not as part of the motion, but just my thoughts on this for future.
Yeah, the issue with, changing the width of the spaces is it's gonna get really challenging for them to meet the market requirements for the properties that we have. Do that. I don't think the width is nearly the problem as much as trying to.
I think with the larger back out area, the width will be less of an issue. I think with the tighter spaces and the shorter back out area, that made it harder to maneuver. Yeah, and the mayor's correct, if we increasing another foot is going to remove 1 out of every 10 spaces from the parking lot. It would be harder to accommodate parking.
It's also.
Any other questions?
The 9 feet is the industry standard, that's what got a curve sheet, just wanted to throw that out there also.
National standard?
At 918.
No, still working with 2 feet.
Any other comments? Call roll.
Trustee Thomas.
Aye.
Trustee Rachevsky.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Substantive amendment, update garages on the accessory structures and uses table.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
move to recommend to the village board to approve the plan commission recommended action for case number 2024-0353, also known as substantive amendment, update garages on the accessory structures and uses table, and move to recommend to the village board to adopt an ordinance entitled an ordinance amending section 6-302 of the Land Development Code of the Village of Orland Park as amended relative to garages.
Second.
And this is cleaning up as well, the fact that garages weren't allowed in certain places. Any comments? Call roll.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Thomas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rachevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Fiscal year 2024, budget amendment number 1, 2023 rollovers.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Reardon.
we would recommend approving the expenditure increases in the general fund, capital improvement fund, recreation and parks fund, water and sewer fund, and the MST, Main Street Triangle TIF fund, a total amount of $12,852,804.46, and expenditure decreases in the general fund and the MST TIF fund in the amount of $4,837,607 as detailed in the fiscal year 2024 budget amendment number 1.
Second.
So in summary of this, there's a lot here, but, George, the bulk of this is rollovers, already budgeted last year, just projects to be completed, and we're rolling that forward. The net of it, as I look at this, is roughly $240,000 is the net budget change for the year.
That is correct.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
just really quick, can someone go a little deeper into the extra expenditures on concert?
Ray, could you just, there was what were the concert expenditures?
So the extra funds that we're asking for to help the extra expenses related to hospitality, travel, transportation, hotel, backline, things like that. So the amount that we had budgeted, we had planned to incorporate those expenses into there. There's additional expenses. And then we're also need some day of show production assistance, which includes security and a house manager and stage hand, sorry.
So we were just hoping that the budget amount that we had was gonna cover everything.
That's right.
We just happened to get.
So we hired a higher level band. Right. Well, with both bands, especially even in the July shows, those higher level bands, they just come with additional production costs.
All right, thank you.
And I think in the future, what we're gonna find is as we get people coming there and it starts to fill up, is that when we get these higher production bands, we'll have higher ticket prices for those particular things, like we're seeing, and, you know, like Lennox is doing that this year. But they already have people that, 5,000 people coming every year, and I think they're also finding it interesting when they go into individual tickets, how much different it is to sell, so they just think that's something that'll iron itself out as we go forward.
Call the roll. Trustee Reardon. Aye. Trustee Healy. Aye. Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani. Aye. Trustee Thomas.
Aye.
Trustee Rachevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
An ordinance amending appendices A and B to ordinance number 5865, third amendment.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
move to recommend to the village board to adopt an ordinance entitled Ordinance Amending Appendices A and B to Ordinance Number 5865, Third Amendment.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon. Aye. Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Any non-scheduled citizens or visitors for public comment on items relevant to village business?
Anybody here to speak? No.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
move to adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye. We're adjourned.